You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the April 11th meeting of the Michigan City Board of Cemetery Trustees. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Trustees meeting on Thursday, April 11th, 2024. Before we do a roll call, we have a request from our recorder that all motions should be stated with motion to accept or deny, whatever you want to do. But we need the name of that person making the motion, so we don't make any errors in that area. As soon as Roxanne gets back, which is very shortly.
Okay. Davis Bush.
Here.
Okay. Bernadette Demke. Here. Renee Bauer.
Here.
Stephen Janis. Vera Gaston. Pastor Dennis Carroll.
Here.
Okay. Kat Hutchins.
Here.
Okay. We have a quorum.
Excellent. We're reviewing and approval of the minutes. We'll need a motion and a second.
I make the motion that we approve the minutes of March. What was our date?
14th, I think, second. 14th.
March 14th.
Ready?
Pastor Dennis Carroll, second.
Excellent. Next item on the agenda happens to be the finance report. And we're gentlemen in the back from Verizon.
Thank you very much. I've disseminated the reports to all of you. We'll begin with on page 1 at the top, the summary with respect to the permanent maintenance employee account. The account was up 0.26% for the month and 0.72% for the year. Year to date, that is to say. Next account, of course, is the permanent maintenance Swan Lake account. That account was up 0.29% for the month and 0.84% for the year. In the extension fund account, the account was up 0.29% for the month and up 0.82% for the year. In the merchandise and commissions fund account, the account was up 0.30% for the month and up 1.1% year to date. Next, we'll turn to the second page with respect to the account details in the permanent maintenance Greenwood account. The money market is currently yielding 5.20%, which is down from last month's yield of 5.25%. Mutual funds overall yield is at 3.26%, which is up from last month's yield of 2.89%, and the overall yield in the account is at 3.86%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.25%. Turning now to page 3, in the permanent maintenance Swan Lake account, mutual funds overall yield is 3.34%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.01%, and the overall yield in the account is at 4.21%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.84%. Going now to page 4, of the extension fund. The mutual funds overall yield is at 3.40%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.04%, and the overall yield in the account is at 4.19%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.60%. Finally, with respect to the merchandise fund, the mutual funds overall yield is at 3.40%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.00%. And the overall yield in the account is at 4.82%, which is up from last month's yield of 4.80%. And With that, we'll now turn matters over to Brad, who will make some comments regarding the market.
Thank you, Aaron. So as far as the economy and the markets are concerned, it seems like we've been talking about this for a long time, several months at least in a row, but inflation is still a big story. The latest consumer price index for the U.S. was released a couple days ago, and the number came in at 3.5% year over year as far as the inflation number. And that was up from February's 3.2%, so it was kind of a surprise. They didn't expect it to rise that much. They expected it to be roughly flat, maybe slightly increase. So looking at the core CPI, which they removed the volatile food and energy component, that was up 3.8%. Gas prices, shelter, including rent, obviously mortgages with the current mortgage rates, those were some of the bigger contributors to that increase. There's some real doubt now about whether the Fed will cut rates in June. I think at the end of last year, there was about a 60 or 70% chance the market was betting that the Fed would make a first interest rate cut in June. Now that probability is down to about 20%. It's still possible because we do have some more inflation numbers that are going to be coming in over the next month or two here. But it's definitely probably the Fed could wait till the September meeting now before they even make that first interest rate cut. The Fed continues to really say the same story that they really want to see meaningful progress towards that 2% inflation target. A lot of historical data that says when we have these high periods of inflation and inflation starts to come down, if the Fed is to cut rates too quickly, you can see a second wave, a second comeback of inflation. So that's really what they're concerned with. They want to make sure that they get inflation down towards that 2% target and keep it there. They don't want to see another surge of inflation at the end of this year or even next year. So that's kind of their stance right now. That's really not changed too much. As far as current rates, with that CPI number that came out the other day, that gave quite a boost to interest rates, especially in the 2 and 3 year range. So we saw, I think, a 20 basis point increase on the 2-year Treasury after that CPI data came out. Just kind of showing that the market is expecting higher rates just kind of stay higher for longer. As far as 6-month rates, we're seeing about 5.25 to 5.3 on CDs and Treasuries. 1 year is 5.05 to 5.15. 2 year is in that almost in that 5 year range, about 4.9, and then it starts dropping down a little bit as you get to the 3 and the 4 year, 4.6, 4.5. So rates are still 4.5, even if you actually 4.5 even if you go out to 5 years on the Treasury. So that's really still attractive interest rates for locking in money if you're able to longer term. And again, I think we talked about this in the past. In the accounts that we manage, we like to incorporate those ladders where we don't put all the eggs in one basket. We kind of ladder it out and say, okay, we're going to buy a 1, a 2, and a 3 year maturity, or we're going to buy a 4, or 5, and a 6. However it makes sense for the client. That's kind of what our strategy is, to kind of spread out that interest rate risk. Amongst your accounts, there's still substantial balances in the money market. I know we had a meeting the other day where there's a possibility you may be taking some withdrawals out for some projects. So that's understandable to keep that money in the money market. Money market is still earning 5.2 right now. And with that latest CPI data, probably going to hang around that area for a little while here until we get some more clarity when the Fed might start cutting rates. But it's the money's available if you need it. If you don't, if you find out, hey, we decide, hey, we're not going to need some of this money for a certain amount of time, we can give you those updated rates, and you can decide how you want to maybe put that money to work and lock in some of these high rates. So That's all I had. I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
There is one. When I was reading, and I do a lot of reading, about the inflation numbers, auto insurance was making everything totally askew.
Sure. Yeah, and there's certain components that definitely can kind of skew things like auto insurance. That's just skyrocketed over the last year or so. So some of these, components that are way out of line definitely can skew these numbers. But I think the Fed kind of looks at it as a whole picture too. And they know that there's certain pieces that are really out of line. We have seen some relief in the food areas. That food inflation is starting to come down a little bit in certain spots, but like you said, gas prices, auto insurance, rent, mortgages, those are really kind of outliers and really pulling up the number, overall. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, we need you guys to keep on it for us, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And all we have now is if we have any questions from the people.
Well, yeah, it's probably a dumb question, but, we're going to be withdrawing some money for these projects. Do these they seem very small increases. In practical terms, does it help us out any, or is it, in dollars, how much more it is an increase of 0.4% or whatever?
Oh, on the CPI you're talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about.
Interest rates.
Yeah, in actual money.
Well, I think that the income that is being earned on these accounts is being paid to you, I think on a quarterly basis, is that right?
Yes, interest checks.
Yeah. So all of these gains that the accounts make are actually being returned to you on a quarterly basis. So now.
In practical terms, though, have you noticed a dollar amount?
Well, and the accounts beyond just the income they earn will earn or grow incrementally within the confines of the account. But it's small steps, given the parameters that we had to work with. These particular accounts must be fixed income only, so.
All right, thank you.
So
All right. Now I need a motion and a second to approve the financial report as stated.
I make a motion to approve the financial report as stated.
I make a second.
Name?
Cat Hutchins.
That's fine.
And Bernadette Dunkey.
All righty. Thank you, gentlemen. Did well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
our pleasure.
We will spend money somewhere. Okay. Now, we have a set of bills that was sent out, and everybody should have a copy of that by now. It's a cemetery payment register. Okay. Is everyone in agreement with the register as far as how much money we have spent or will spend shortly?
Is there anything out of the ordinary on this?
No, and, it's substantial, obviously, because we're making a lot of repairs, so if anybody has any concerns or questions about any of the payments you see, please don't hesitate to ask, because we want to be fully transparent here, and if you have any questions about any of the purchases, please ask. So.
Is the Highland Supply, are those the repairs?
The Howland Supply is the new mooring device that we just purchased.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Is that here?
Yes, we took delivery of that.
Okay, then I'm going to ask for a motion and second to accept the bills as presented.
Tony Bauer, I'll make a motion to accept the bills
I'll second
that were presented.
Pastor Dennis Carroll, second.
Excellent. All righty. Now, we do have one of our old business people here. I don't know if Megan's here, but Abraham is.
Yes, Megan
Megan?
is out there, so do you want me to go?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and bring her back since she's here already.
Okay.
This has to do with Saturday funerals.
Megan is with which funeral?
Carl.
Is there anything for special we should say?
Excellent.
Hi, how are you? I'm going to introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, Bill. I'm Megan. I'm one of the funeral directors over at Mason Carlisle Funeral Home. Hi, Pastor.
Hi.
Good, good.
I'm Raheem Hakeem. I'm the vice president of the Islamic Center. And if most of you guys probably know Phil DeBeja, he's our president, and he's been a little under the weather the last couple of years, so asked me to represent us on this.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, as we all will say. Now you have a presentation for us?
Sure. And are you the new superintendent? or-
No?
Oh, you are, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Megan. I haven't met you yet. I talked to you as well. But what we're asking for is for religious purposes to be able to bury on Saturdays. I know that we have cut Saturday burials out of the equation altogether, which we would also like to just have Saturday burials be an option to families as well for non-religious purposes. But if that's not able to happen, then definitely for religious purposes.
And for Muslims and our Jewish friends, the Jewish bury within 24 hours, and we typically bury within 24 hours. And one of the reasons for that, our Islamic law, I brought some law books just in case you need proof of it, require us to bury as soon as possible. And one of the reasons is we don't embalm unless state law required it, and the same thing with autopsies. We don't do autopsies unless the law is requiring it. So because we bury without embalming, we have a procedure for washing, and we use camphor and lotus leaves and things that do that into traditional shrouding. So after we wash our deceased person, we put them in the coffin, and you typically leave the coffins closed. We don't do open coffin services, and we try our best, if at all possible, to bury within 24 hours. My mother passed away September 14th, which was on a Thursday at 2:30, and we almost didn't have time to get her buried on Friday. And she was a very religious woman, and Megan made the calls, and,
Yeah.
and we
So
were.
he's literally making sure in the moment that his mom is passing away to be calling me right away so that he can call the cemetery.
And
So that we can get a burial in
so
on Friday, because we can't bury on Saturday, and then that means they wouldn't have been able to bury until the next week, you know, which is a very stressful situation on families, you know, I mean,
we knew for a couple of days, we had home hospice, we knew she was not gonna last long, but for us, only God knows when our time is. So holding her hand, and part of my mind is taken away from the grieving process of my mom, thinking, I have to call Megan as soon as things happen. And and then Megan's first response after she called us, we need 24 hours notice.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, then we have to wait till Monday. So for most of us who are religious, that delay is a big hardship on the family, causes a lot of grief and anxiety. We had a burial 2 months ago for Alice,
yes.
and
The family was under the understanding of already the rules of everything with the cemetery now since COVID. So they had already planned the service to be on Monday, you know, just because they knew what they were up against,
Right.
so.
but if at all possible, it's much, much better. It would relieve a lot of anxiety in our community if we can bury on Saturday. I have an uncle in Clearwater, Florida, who is from Michigan City and spent his whole life here and wants to be brought here for burial. But my cousin has told me she made arrangements with an Islamic center there that owns their own cemetery just in case if he passed away on say a Thursday or something, and they couldn't fly them up until Friday or Wednesday, you already have a delay when you're moving a body from like that. And they said if that happened, and there's a 5-day delay, then she'd be forced to bury him there because of the hardship of that delay. And for our people, for the grieving process, we bury quickly. It's part of our rules. So we have a 7-day memorial after the person passes. So if you die on a Friday, we bury you Saturday, we'll have a memorial the next Saturday. So it gives the family time to do the burial and then time to grieve and then memorialize.
And really, this is the same situation that we had with Sinai Temple Cemetery, which is within Greenwood's location. And it became such an issue, and luckily, Sinai owns that land there, so we were able to use, separate grave diggers to make their, to be able to do burials on Saturdays. Do they own the land there? I don't know enough to know anything, but do they own that land?
It's entirely owned by them, operated by them, cared for by them.
Sinai,
Yes.
The property itself?
yes.
Property itself.
Yeah,
Just
so
might as well
we
cut it
just
out
do
of
that?
agreement.
Really?
Yeah, so we've got our own
They take
grave
care of it
diggers
completely.
to come in to be able to do that. But what I'm asking is for the Islamic Center, where their graves are, do they own that land there to where we can bring in our own grave diggers?
That I don't believe happened. No.
Jim Angeny, my mom's brother, my uncle, he donated that section. He bought that section and donated it to the Islamic Center. So I never knew if he bought the land, but that whole section that we have marked off, I know my Uncle Jim years ago bought that and donated it to the Islamic Center.
Right, is there any way for you to research that to see if he's
He's
purchased
been
it?
gone 15 years. I don't
15
know.
years, that's not bad.
So we can double check that. We'd have to, I guess, do some research on the deeds and the titles of the property. But it was always told me since I've been here that the cemetery actually owns that property. But if that's not the case, then, I mean, you guys be more, I'm sure the board will be more than willing to allow you to maintain that yourselves, to do your burials yourselves and everything on that plot.
Right, and we weren't necessarily looking for that.
No.
We're hoping to continue, using the cemetery in the way we have in the past, but just to be allowed to bury on Saturday.
Right.
And right now, we're not asking for Sunday. Sunday would be fantastic, but, we're asking for at least the Saturday burial.
So there's actually two separate issues here. The first
Right,
would
exactly.
be the Saturday burials is required by your religion. And the second would be Saturday burials just for convenience. So I just had one question, was you had indicated that you want to do Saturday burials so that you can get the body in the ground within 24 hours because you don't embalm.
Right.
But just to clarify, you also have a religious reason for that too. Your religion dictates that you have that body in the ground within 24 hours, is that correct?
It doesn't say specifically 24 hours, it says as soon as possible and as soon as feasible, due to the fact that we don't embalm. And there's laws that go step by step about no embalming and how we preserve a body and why we can't keep it separate, because when the person passes, we wash them immediately. And once the person is washed and put in their death shroud, they're in a state of ritual purity, so we put them in their coffin and close that, so nobody can touch that unless people are under a state of ritual purity. So we can't put them in a cooler or do anything like that once they've been washed. And the washing is required immediately. And then once we've washed, then it's almost imperative that we bury right away since there's no embalming. But all of the
Is there anything actually in your religious doctrine or anything in writing that says that this body should be buried within a day or 24 hours or anything like that?
It all says as soon as possible.
See, what we're trying to avoid, we want to clarify, because I know Megan, a couple months ago, you called me up because you had requested a Saturday burial in.
Common knowledge.
And I indicated
We're
that I
after
would
a
try
document.
I would try to
Any
indicate that.
paperwork that for this response, we have to document.
Right. And that's why I wanted to be clear, because common knowledge among Muslims is you have to bury within 24 hours. And I was raised my whole life. We have to bury within 24 hours, just like our Jewish cousins. And when I'm a student of Islamic law, I enjoy doing research on all religions, but when I was looking for documentation, everything I found from all 5 Islamic schools of thought and our higher imams and their publications, all of them stress as soon as possible, and many bury the same day. And overseas, if one of my relatives dies in the village in Lebanon, they will bury them that same day, within 3-4 hours. They'll have the funeral and do things immediately. And well, family's not here. I have family from California. It doesn't matter. We want to bury it immediately. The family can come for the 7-day split, the 7-day memorial, or the 40-day memorial. It's imperative that we bury as soon as possible. So in most cases, overseas, they bury the same day.
Right. Somewhere along the line, we need a document that actually states that. I mean, it's very nice to hear from you, but we do need a document to review.
Right.
Now, I know we stopped the Saturday burials due to COVID precautions. Is there a reason why we're not continuing with Saturday burials?
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I was wanted to follow up though on the religious aspect because, like I said, we have no issue honoring the Islamic customs in doing Saturday funerals for the Islamic faith. We don't have a very big section over there, so it happens very infrequently.
It's like once to twice a year.
Right, so we have no issue accommodating that.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row as far as making sure that this is the only religion that requires this, because we don't want, once other people find out, other funeral homes, religions find out that we're going to accommodate your request, we're kind of fearful that other religions or funeral homes are going to come to us and say, well, we have kind of these obscure religions coming forward saying, we demand a Saturday funeral too, right, because we can't accommodate just a mass Saturday burials, because when it was stopped during COVID, it was never brought up again because we have manpower issues. I can tell you we do have 2 personnel who will quit, so we'll be looking for 2 new employees if we start just open Saturday burials again. And as you've seen by some of the presentations I've given, we don't have the money to pay all that overtime right now because we have so many issues, hundreds of thousands of dollars that we have to spend to get the cemeteries up to par. Now after, I don't know, a few years after we're able to make all the repairs out here and we're all caught up financially, maybe we could reconsider mass, just for any funeral home.
Opening up our business.
Right.
I mean, what if you were to even raise your opening and closing prices?
Because we've done that, we've paid
I mean, families will pay whatever it is for Saturday. If there's financial loss, you name your number, I mean, families will pay.
It was extra on Saturday.
It needs to be
Oh, yeah.
extremely
It was
extra on Saturday.
Didn't we pay something like?
Oh, yeah, families
$40
to
cover
for
what we
Saturday?
did, there was an extra.
And it was in accordance to time zone. So we had like, if it was before 11 o'clock, it was an additional $4.25. If it was after 11, it was an additional $6.50. But, I just feel like if it's about a financial thing, name an astronomical number, like, whatever it is, then give that option at least,
Well, again, like I said, I would recommend keeping these 2 issues separate.
That's fine.
Like say,
Yeah.
if I have no
I
problem
definitely
accommodating
want
the Islamic faith if that's their requirement, but I think we need to take a deeper look at doing Saturday funerals for anybody, because I think we're going to be, because obviously Carlisle's not the only one that's contacted us. We
Yes.
have 2 or 3 other funeral homes that want to do Saturday funerals again, and we're going to lose employees, and also.
It's the old Bobby does it, why can't I?
But the other issue is we have so many issues out here that if we're not going to pay overtime every Saturday for all these guys to come in every Saturday. So what we would have to do is let these guys off on Wednesday or Thursday, but we can't afford to do that right now because we have so much maintenance to do that we can't have them tied up for a whole day just to do burials when they need to be here Monday through Friday, getting caught up on all of the building repairs. So.
What if we're paying extra? I mean, if we paid that extra $400 to cover up our time,
Well, again, this year it wouldn't work because we have a set budget for our personnel already, and we've already taken, at the last meeting, we agreed to take money out of our personnel budget to cover our OSHA violations. So that $44,000 extra personnel position that we had, that probably would have gone to pay our overages in overtime towards the end of the year, has already been spent to pay for our OSHA violations for this year. So next year, I guess we could ask the council for additional personnel funds to cover our overtime. But again, it's just a matter of finding the people who want to do it. I have a folder here of applications for our seasonal employees that applied for the seasonal positions this year, and we don't have a lot to pick through. So if we lose our current full-time employees due to the Saturday work requirements, we're going to have a hard time finding people that want to come out here and dig graves on the weekends.
I mean, I feel like the opening and closing fee is less than most cemeteries that we work with. I work with a lot of other cemeteries. So, I mean, you guys could even, raise your generalized opening and closing fee. You're at $1,365. I mean, some places are $2,900. So, I'm just throwing things out there. Sorry, I'm overstepping, but
Have you talked to the employees about that?
Yes, and like I said,
Because some people
we have
like
four,
overtime.
right, we have 4 full-time employees that just do the burials. We have 2 here and 2 at Greenwood.
I mean, what if
We
you,
have 1 at each one of those cemeteries who will be leaving us if we go back to Saturday funerals fully. Now they're well aware that we have to accommodate the Islamic, because we already indicated that we'd
Yeah.
be willing to do that. So they understand there's certain emergency times that we have to do this, but as far as them coming in every Saturday,
Because it takes 2.
right, we have to
It
have
takes
2.
we have to have
We can't use our
Not just
seasonal
one.
employees to do the burials because there's special training required in operating the lift device.
what if it were double overtime? I mean, people usually, employees often respond to money. I'm just talking here.
I mean, even like outsourcing to Harris, I know he's, he's got a great staff and.
Well, we're discussing this, just throwing out here. This is a small book by Sayyid Muhammad Hassan Jalali. He was one of the preeminent Islamic scholars in the United States, passed away a couple of years ago. And he, in his book of Islamic burial law, he says, after death, it is recommended to bury the deceased person as soon as possible. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, honor the deceased person by hurrying to bury him or her. And then he said, it is forbidden to embalm a body. Note, there's no requirement by law to embalm if the body is buried within 24 hours. And, doing that, and that was in his book. And then this was customs for preparing the body. And it's another school of thought that I just printed from online. It says, upon first hearing the news of someone passing, it's custom for Muslims to recite verse from the Quran to translate to English, truly we belong to God and to Him we shall return. This recitation, okay, I'll skip that. When it comes to funeral arrangements, Sharia, that's Islamic law, determines that the burial process must begin as soon as the person passes, typically within 24 hours of the death. One reason for this is to help alleviate the pain, minimize the grief process for the family. Another is to protect the living from potentially unsanitary conditions because we're leaving an unembalmed body.
And
So
a lot of
would-
times in a non-sealed casket.
Yeah.
Would copies of that be sufficient, do you
That would
think?
be quite sufficient. We could actually probably do that right off of the video.
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, just to have it as backup in case we're approached
Exactly.
by
Well,
some.
Everything's on paper. Okay, we have to keep extra special papers for everything. A document for this, a document for that. Nobody can go by word of mouth. And even though it's
But
common
that's-
knowledge,
Yeah, but I mean, that seems rather specific, what he just,
that's very specific and it'll go just fine. She can do that fine.
I mean,
But it's still my recommendation that we actually go and table this for a month till we go through with what Mr. Losnecki has to do, who we have to talk to downtown, and he's going to do that for us. And then we can make a decision at the next meeting. We'll call it a table. Is that agreeable with everyone? We're still going to honor Saturday street funerals for you guys.
Oh, good,
No
okay,
problem.
so we will do that.
Yeah, we just want.
At an additional fee.
Yeah, just for this.
We would
Okay.
just like 30 days till our next meeting, because we're gonna have to come up with rules for it. One of the things that came up was, obviously, if you're requiring the body to be buried within 24 hours, we don't want a situation where if somebody dies on a Tuesday, that you're holding the body until Saturday, just so family can come to town, whatever. And if we're gonna do it, we have to have rules so that another religion doesn't come to us and say, why are you accommodating this religion?
Well, with Bill Carlisle several years ago, we have, like all faiths, we have families in our community that are very devout, and families that might be Muslim or Jewish or Christian by name. I was born Muslim, I was born Jewish, I was born Christian, so my family's burying me this way. And some of those families will receive the delay in several days as a Muslim who values himself as following his faith. It hurts me a lot when they do that because I feel for the deceased. But Bill Carlisle and I, probably 15, 20 years ago, said when these families delay, if they're going to delay 4 or 5 days, Bill, go ahead and embalm the body. It's against our faith, but
But what they're doing is essentially against your
right,
faith as well.
embalm the body, and then we'll wash it and shroud it after the embalming because the family's chosen to wait 4 or 5 days. And I don't like to do that. We've only done it a couple of times, but every once in a while, a family will
Yeah.
throw
We've
something
never
else.
done that in the past 13
Yeah,
years that I've been here,
right.
so we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that. No.
Sometimes shipping a body from another state, if the Board of Health or whoever's holding the body for release, we've had embalming in those cases.
Right, well, we do completely understand
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
and special reasons. We do understand that, and we're willing to bend
Yeah.
as much as possible,
I
but
appreciate that.
Yeah.
just until we get everything documented.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's fine. Perfect. Well, thank you. Appreciate
So,
that.
and, like I say, when, in the next meeting, we'll make it solid, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other, with the Saturday burials, it's,
Right.
That's the part, you mean just for the general public, that we'd have to wait possibly until the next budget, is that?
Well, I mean,
Increase.
either way, I would recommend that the board table it till the next meeting on that decision too.
Okay.
Right, because it's just not a matter of calling our employees in and saying, hey, you have to work this Saturday. There's budgetary issues. And again, there's issues. My main concern this year isn't Saturday funerals, and I apologize to anybody, but it's not. My main concern this year is getting the cemeteries up to par. Because we've all seen the pictures that I've shown, all the documentation that we have an enormous amount of work to do to get both of these properties up to respectable conditions. And if we don't have the employees here Monday through Friday to do that, it's not gonna happen, so.
So hopefully that helps.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nice.
But I will just say, I feel like a lot of families do want to do Saturdays. I mean, imagine if your loved one passed away, would be the best day for you and your family and your friends to gather for, to commemorate their life or celebrate their life. And, for a lot of people, that's a Saturday.
It's quite understandable. We have internal issues to deal with.
No, I understand. So I'm just,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Megan,
Good to see you. Thank you.
a little hug.
Oh.
Favorite hug. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Now, is Militia here too?
No, she's not.
Okay, then we're gonna move on to the superintendent's report.
So starting off, I have the burial report here for March. We had a total of 13 burials at Greenwood and a total of 7 at Swan Lake for a grand total of 20, and that's about average what we've been seeing per month. Our progress on the cemetery software mapping, we now have 2 quotes. We have one final third quote that we're waiting for. But again, once we get those, it's going to be a process because we're probably going to go after ARPA funding to pay for that. The first quotes indicate that we're looking at tens of thousands of dollars for that, which the mayor has also indicated that she would be willing to go after ARPA funding for that specific project, so. Second of all, at the last meeting, I brought up about the unused veterans grave markers that we found in both cemeteries. We're still working on that project. Denise over at Greenwood found a total of 14 of those. She's still working on finding phone numbers for the owners of those, and then hopefully once we get that list finalized, we'll be able to go back to the service organizations so we can actually hopefully get somebody to start up maybe a fundraiser to purchase the granite so we can get those markers out in the cemetery.
So there's 14 markers at Greenwood?
Actually, I have a total here at Swan Lake. So far, we found 36. I think there might be more than that.
Okay.
But we're still working on trying to locate the family members that are associated with those deceased persons. So. The update on the bonding of our employees at the last meeting was brought up that there is an ordinance that requires that every board member and every employee of the cemetery that handles money be bonded. I contacted our city attorney's office, who in turn contacted the general insurance services, who handles the insurance for the whole city. They did some research and found that we're actually included under the umbrella bonding that takes place for the whole city. So that's already been paid for under one blanket policy that covers all of the city employees. So we don't have to worry about going through that expense.
So the names need to be added under that umbrella?
I would assume that's probably done through the clerk's office, since there's already a record of every board member in the city and every city employee. So, yes. It was inquired upon at the last meeting about the possibility of establishing a pet cemetery. I asked Roxanne to look into this for me. Roxanne has contacted
Lakeview,
Yes.
Lakeview Funeral Home in LaPorte. They have a pet cemetery. So I'm waiting for them to give me a call back with some more information about it, and then I'm sure I'll have that by the next board meeting for everybody.
Just wanted to update everybody on the council. At the last council meeting last week, myself and Roxanne attended that meeting. At that meeting, they approved the transfer of around $13,000 out of our personnel position to pay for the OSHA violations that were voted upon at the last cemetery board meeting. So that's been done. I put on a whole presentation for them that I did for this board. I think it opened a lot of eyes to the council people, and I think it was beneficial for us because I think they realize now all the money that it's going to take to repair all of these problems out here. So there were more than a couple council members that voiced their support in any funding resolutions or funding ordinances that we might seek to fund these repairs. So that was good. Seasonal employees, I have one seasonal employee right now that started a couple weeks ago, and then next Monday, the 15th, I have 2 more seasonal employees who will start, and those 2 seasonal employees are primarily responsible for grass. So the grass, as you can see, has started growing. We've already started cutting here at Swan Lake when it was dry, so trying to get an early jump on that and keep ahead of the grass.
They do the mowing and the trimming
Yes.
this season.
Update on the property repair quotes, and you'll see in the next slide here, I have a list of the things that I'm trying to get quotes for. I do have quite a few quotes that came in already. Just the few that I have came in over $100,000 for each. Not that's the total. So there's a lot of smaller quotes that I'm getting because we're trying to break the work into smaller segments. Just to make it easier to bid out, because there's not a lot of companies that will do an assortment of work. We have to find specific electricians, plumbers to do the work in each one of their fields. So we're breaking it down into smaller projects. And while I was speaking with the city attorney about our funding, she indicated that years ago, the cemetery board actually approved their own purchasing policy. their purchasing policy mirrors the city's. So when myself and Roxanne went through all of the rules, regulations for the cemeteries a few weeks ago before the last meeting, we put together the pamphlet for each board member that had every rule we could find in there. Nowhere in any of the facilities that we have was a copy of the cemetery's personnel or purchasing policy. So I have a copy of that for each member that you can, and I punched holes in it so you can put it in the pamphlet or the binders that we passed out at the last meeting. I read through them. They pretty much mirror what the city's purchasing policy is. So there's not a lot of deviation for that. So fortunately, all of the quotes that I've gotten so far have followed this policy. So we'll pass those out at the end of the meeting. Roxanne and myself met with the city controller and the Verizon Bank representatives a couple days ago, and that was for the purpose of going over the extension fund. When we make these repairs, we're going to have to take a lot of that money out of the extension fund because the city doesn't have a lot of money right now to spend on things that weren't already budgeted for this year. So as you can see in the report that the Verizon Bank representatives gave us earlier, we have about $780,000 in the extension fund. Of all the funds we have, the extension fund is the most liquid at this time, so a substantial portion of what's in that fund can be taken out immediately for immediate purchases. We don't have to wait for CDs to expire or treasuries to expire, so that's good. I don't plan on spending the majority of this money. I want to spend as little as possible and try to seek other avenues such as the ARPA funding or whatever the mayor allows us to pursue. But some of the smaller stuff we are going to have to purchase out of our extension fund. So the rules for that go that there's the $780,000 that is in there now, that's in the trust. It's kind of separate from a checking account that we also have for the extension fund. So currently we have about
Over 26,000.
About 26,000 in that. I call it a checking fund, but it's more of a fund that's already been transferred out of the trust. It's just sitting there and can be spent immediately. So the majority of that money that's already in there is going to be used to pay for the equipment items that were approved at our last board meeting, such as the lowering device, roller, our trailer. So in the future, if there's any major purchases that are approved by this board and that are going to be paid out of the extension fund, we have to vote to make a transfer out of that extension fund to the checking account for the extension fund, if that makes sense. But so I would assume we'd have to make a motion first to approve or disapprove any purchases, and then if the purchases are approved, there'd have to be a second motion to transfer enough money out of the trust portion of the extension fund to the checking to cover whatever purchases have been approved. So.
And you have a priority list?
Yes, and I'll show that here in a minute. So. It's kind of hard to read, but so there's 4 columns here. The first is safety, second is equipment, third is building and infrastructure, and the last is future needs. The safety, I put that first because that has to be our priority of any money that we spend going forward. We're going to have to make sure that our safety items are corrected first. The items that are highlighted in green are the items that have already been approved for purchase. So under safety, I have correcting OSHA violations, and that was the contract that this board signed with Mr. McCoy at the last meeting. So that's being undertaken at the moment. We're in the process of ordering AEDs for both cemeteries, funding the training that's going to occur. Our 2 seasonal employees that will be starting Monday, they're going to go through a training session with Mr. McCoy, a safety training session, just to orient them on what we expect. The other 2 things that I have in that column is one of the requirements or things we need to fix for the OSHA violations is we need to install new fuel pumps at both cemeteries. We can't use the gravity-fed ones anymore. So that's going to require the installation of new electric service to the areas where we're going to install those electric pumps. So I've already got one quote on that. And then if you'll notice, you probably notice when you leave the drive here, but you'll see about 3 or 4 utility poles that run from this building to the maintenance building out here. At least 2 of those are in danger of collapsing. They're cracked and ready to tip over. So we want to bore that electric underground so we can eliminate those utility lines. Another problem with those utility lines is that when we have deliveries here from large semi-trucks, we can't bring them through to unload at the maintenance building. We have to unload them at the highway because the trucks don't want to take the chance of snagging those lines because they're hanging low. So. Under equipment, fortunately, all the things in green were approved at the last meeting. We have a couple of things that I'd still like to purchase as soon as possible, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the main thing is here under building and infrastructure, I have a priority needs list here of things that I would like to get going as soon as possible. And the way I've broken them down is the way I've broken them down as far as getting quotes too. So for instance, even though we may have 3 or 4 different electrical projects that we need done, I've broken them into specific projects so that if we don't want to do all the electric at once, if we don't have the money to do it, we can just do the necessary electrical repairs based on how much they cost. So I have obviously the number one thing I'd like to get fixed this year, if we ran out of money completely and could only fix one thing, it would be the HVAC system at the Serenity Mausoleum. That's the most expensive thing on the list too, because I've already gotten one quote for that. Skylight replacement at Greenwood. I'd like to replace all the service doors at both cemeteries. Yesterday, I met with Nick Pollock, who's the president of the local carpenters union. He came out here and looked at some of the repairs we're looking at doing, and he's going to go back to his union. They do certain volunteer projects for the community every year, and he's going to talk to them to see if maybe they would consider making us one of their volunteer projects as far as some of the smaller carpentry items that need to be repaired out here. So if that happens, the only thing we'd be responsible for is the supplies. They would provide the labor. So. I'd like to repair the irrigation system out here at Swan Lake. The reason I want to do that is because right now there's not really any place for anybody to get water. If they plant flowers out here on their family member's grave, there's no place, there's no source for them to get water to water flowers and things like that. So I think we need to correct that so there's a source of water. Exterior painting of both offices, interior remodeling, electrical repairs, flooring in all of our buildings. Repair of the stained glass windows at the Greenwood Mausoleum. This is one thing that we do need to do at some point this year is install electrical service to our pond out here at Swan Lake so that we can safely plug in our aerator or fountain, whichever we choose to purchase, so that we can keep the swans out there year round. For some reason, years ago, the city undertook energy efficiency project where they updated all of the city buildings to LED lighting. For some reason, that never took place at the cemeteries. So one of the quotes I got was for converting all of the LED lights in the offices to, all of the fluorescent ones that we have now to LED to save money. Sidewalk repairs at our mausoleum out here at Swan Lake, and then repair the drainage issues around the mausoleum so we don't have water sitting on some of the graves.
So that's not necessarily the order?
No, the only thing, like I said, I put the HVAC system up there at the top because I think that's...
Because I would think the weather stripping you'd want right away.
Right.
Okay.
As far as future needs and these are things that I'd like to do, but with all the things that we have to do, these might have to wait a year or two. But not necessarily our cemetery burial records. That's going to happen this year. I'm pretty confident about that. Mm-hmm. But the drainage system, like I say, there's several gardens out here within Swan Lake that don't have drainage, so that's why we can't do burials during the wet season out there because like this week, we had so much rain this week that we had to turn down a burial because we were afraid that we'd end up running up the cemetery or sinking out there. So.
What do you mean by turn down? So what happens?
We either offer to entomb the body here in our mausoleum until the ground dries up and then we'll do the burial, or the funeral home has the option of just keeping the body at their funeral home until it dries up. So, One of the things I'm looking at, we're quickly running out of room at Greenwood. Pretty soon we'll have all the niches, the mausoleum, all the burials full out there. So one of the things I've looked at, they're called columbariums. And if you ever drive by St. Stan's Cemetery, you'll see they have one. We'd like to do one a little larger than what they have, but what it is, it's an actual column that sits outside. It's not a building, it's just usually a concrete column. And we can intern ashes, we can do ash interments in there. So what it is, it's a large column with either glass or granite where we entomb the urns, and then there's benches around it so people can sit and reflect there. But I think it'd be a good use of our money because we'd still be able to generate funds out of Greenwood. And there's a lot of people who have family members that are buried at Greenwood and would like to someday be buried at Greenwood, even though, all of our ground burials are full, they can still be within the same cemetery as their family. So there's several areas. It doesn't require much ground space because they're built up. So there's several, like I would call them traffic triangles between the driveways throughout the cemetery, where we could consider installing those. So.
Sounds like a much better idea than removing roads. For
yes.
A limited number of grades.
The other things are pavement replacement at both cemeteries. Street Department came out this week and patched a lot of our potholes, but we still have some issues with the pavement at both cemeteries. We'd eventually like to connect Swan Lake to NIPSCO gas so we don't have to mess around with the tanks anymore. We'd like to connect to city sewer and water. Hopefully that'll happen when the annexation project is done with the easement through our property. And another thing I put on here, which I would like to explore at a later time, is the purchase of a mini excavator and a dump trailer. And what that would do, I actually went out to a dealer today when we were looking at tractors and looked at some mini excavators. And the purpose of that is we'd like to find a way to do burials out here even when the ground's wet. So a mini excavator is like a backhoe that's on rubber tracks, which has a lot lower ground pressure. So before we even consider purchasing one of these, the vendor that I talked to today would be willing to allow us to test one out to see if it will actually work. But if that's the case, then we would be able to run this machine through the cemetery without worrying about sinking or running up the lawn. So, and then we would need a dump trailer with that too, so that we don't have to drive our dump trucks across the grass too. We would just load into this dump trailer, which would subsequently be transported either by our utility vehicle or by the tractor that you're going to see in the next slide. So this is an aerial view of Swan Lake. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner the 14-acre parcel, and there's no burials up there. That's the area on the external side of the outermost drive behind the older mausoleum. That's 14 acres, and we've always cut that with our 60-inch zero-turn mowers, which is ridiculous because we're tearing those things up. It's wet out there a lot of the time, so we can't get out there, so the grass will grow 2 foot tall before we can actually go out there and cut it. So in turn, we're out there tearing up these nice Kubota zero-turn mowers that we purchased. So, and it takes 2 to 3 days to cut this field. So I solicited quotes from 3 different vendors for a utility tractor with a pull-behind mower that would be able to cut tall grass if we're ever not able to get out there because of the water. This will cut 2-foot grass easily, but it also has a 100-foot wide path that it'll cut. So we'll be able to cut this, hopefully cut this field within a day at the most. And we won't be tearing up our smaller machines which weren't meant to do that type of work. In addition to that area, that 14-acre parcel up there, there's also a lot of acreage around the newer mausoleum over here too that we can use it on because there's no burials here. So there's a wide open lot that we can use that machine for too. So I obtained 3 quotes. One was from Riggs, one was from Frontier, which is John Deere, and the other was from Ronson Equipment, and they sell Coyote tractors. I compared them all. They're all pretty similar in horsepower. The Coyote brand here, the dealer can get us a 99-inch mower. I was hoping for what they call a batwing mower, but those are ridiculously priced. We're looking at $30,000 just for the mower on that. So I'm trying to get the largest single pull mower that we can find, which is this 99-inch one. The Ronson dealer can provide their tractor immediately. The other two would have to seek out a tractor from another dealer or order the tractor. And then the Coyote tractor came in at the least amount at $34,000. So my recommendation, if the board approves this, would be to go with the lowest bid because they were the most responsive on the bid as far as meeting our price points and the size of the actual mower deck that we're looking for.
Are you comfortable with that brand? Have you had some experience with it?
They've been around for a while. Coyotes are made in South Korea, so it's not American made, but most of the parts for the other two tractors aren't American made either. They have a good warranty on the tractor. They have two locations. They have one, this dealer is in Westville. Their other offices are in Lowell, Indiana, so they're relatively close. So if we need service on those, we can transport the unit to their facility. They'll take care of the repairs, or they have mobile mechanics too that can come out and fix the unit too. So in addition to quoting the tractors, I also quoted turf tires because we don't want these ag tires that are here now. They'll tear up the lawn. So all of the quotes that I got were for turf tires too. So again, it would be nice if we could get this approved at this meeting. If you want time to research it on your own and defer it till the next meeting to consider, I don't have a problem with that. As stated, I want to be completely transparent. If you don't feel comfortable purchasing this right now, if you want to look into it further, or you don't think it's on the top of our priority list, I completely understand. But I would just like to get this going because the grass is starting to grow. We put a lot of effort and maintenance into getting all of our zero turns fixed, and I just don't want to take them out there and tear them up again in that big field trying to cut that.
So would this come from the extension fund then?
Yes.
Jeff, where would these be stored?
We have room in our maintenance building out here to store
It's
it.
not set out?
No, definitely not this
Okay.
one. No. And the other thing I should mention is, if you're familiar with a farm tractor, it has a 3-point hitch on the back. There's hundreds of different types of implements you can get to attach to use for this tractor. So that's why I would like to go to one of these tractors, because currently the cemetery doesn't own anything with a 3-point hitch. So when we're not cutting grass with this, we can also attach a back blade to it, so we can do any grading that we need to do in the cemetery. We can attach fertilizer spreaders, you name it, they make it for the back of this tractor. So it'd be not just for grass cutting, it's dual purpose.
Sounds like it's an expansion of our ability to work.
Yes. Yeah.
How long does it take if we go with something like that, how long does it take to come in?
They have this one in stock, so
They do.
yeah, and they have the mower deck is a demonstrator, so we're getting a big price break on the mower deck. So the mower deck was originally $8,000, but they discounted to I think $5,900.
And is that included in that price? or is that-
Yes, this includes the mower and the turf tires and everything.
So what is the process if we approve? It still would be a while, right? Because it was drawing through the extension fund?
What would happen is if you approve the purchase today, you would just need also a second motion to approve transferring enough money from the extension fund trust into the checking account. Yes.
Thank you for explaining.
If you look out there, the grass is absolutely big already.
Is it? Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I had for the director's report. If anybody has any questions about anything else.
Okay. I think this is a good idea myself, and we're gonna ask for the first motion to approve purchase of the Coyote DK 4520 as presented by our super. I'll need a motion and a second.
I, Cat Houchins, make a motion that we purchase the Coyote from Brunson, DK 4520, for $34,000.
Motion on the Coyote.
And the name.
That's your discount.
Okay. Now I need a second motion to move funds around from the extension fund.
I'll make a motion to move the necessary funds to purchase the Coyote DK 4520 from the extension fund to the liquid fund. And my name is Bernadette Dimke.
Second. Anyone?
I can't Hutchins second that.
Excellent. Motion carries. Hopefully we can get rock and roll.
I think they still need to vote on it.
Yeah,
We still need to vote.
okay, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, now we'll go. It's approved. I'd just rather approve it myself, but
Can I just add one more thing that I forgot? We've taken delivery of the lowering device already and a couple other items such as the floor jack and some smaller items. So just want to say that it's really improved the morale of our employees.
Oh, nice.
Especially the lowering device, they don't have to worry about dropping a casket into a grave accidentally. And then they're just, I think the whole attitude of our employees has changed because they have things to look forward to. They have new equipment that they can work with. They don't have to worry about their safety or things like that. So it's made a big improvement.
Can you speak? Okay, on this issue right here with the tractor, when you're transferring it from the trust account, I will call Aaron at the bank and he will send me a paper, a directive, and that some of the board members will have to sign that also. And then we can go from there. It's just because it's the trust, so it's a little bit different, and giving them permission to transfer the funds.
So we would be signing a document from the bank.
Correct, because we're going into the trust.
Okay.
Yes.
how many board members do you need?
Well, I'm going to look I should say from Horizon Bank, that everybody signed. Then there'll just be a couple board members that can go ahead and sign for it. And I can email that back to him.
All right, just
But I'll get with you, I'll give you a call and let you know.
let's all know.
Okay?
Okay, do we have any new business, which is, actually, I didn't notice that. We didn't have a list for new business.
Could I say something?
Sure.
I'm new, so bear with me. It seems like when somebody finds out that you're on the cemetery board, they come flocking. And,
Maybe to you, but.
well, they have to me, so I talked about Greenwood and Swan Lake cemeteries. I wrote this down, what the family's challenges with unused cemetery plots. It has been posted and commented on social media by several residents or former residents of Michigan City that they are aware of family plots that their parents or grandparents held which they are not going to use and are unable to sell to someone else because their ancestors did not sign the plots, the title over to someone else before they died. A friend related an experience that she had with her mother, who was anxious to sign over her unused plot to her 2 children before she died, because she understood that her descendants would not be able to use them or sell them if they were not put into their names, because her will would not allow transfer of this property like usual inheritance. It has often been stated that there are no plots or few plots still available in Greenwood Cemetery. Yet could there be numerous plots like those cited above which no one will be able to use in the future, and also those which will not be utilized due to arrangements for cremation or plans for burial elsewhere. How is it possible to not be able to sell plots back to the cemetery, thus making it the sole responsibility of those who own them to sell them as independent agents? Wouldn't it be in the best interest of both Greenwood and Swan Lake for the cemeteries to be the brokers for the potential abandoned or desiring to be released plots? In the past, cemeteries made most of their funds from the sale of plots in order to pay their staff and fund grounds upkeep. Since cemeteries are running out of plots or running low on plots to sell, it then becomes the burden of the private or government cemetery owners to make up for the loss of its revenue. Even if by ordinance, easier ways to transfer lots are currently not allowed in Michigan City, it could be possible for the city council to amend the ordinances to make for easier exchange and sales of these plots as suggested above, as long as it is not in violation of the Indiana state law. I've had several people approach me on this, and they're wondering, it's not, in some of their inheritance, but yet it's paid for. It's land that is not being utilized, not being used. And then we say, well, you know, we haven't got that many plots. We have, but we just can't use them. Because the people that bought them at the time, they're either died or they were cremated or they went somewhere else. But there are still families that are around.
So I haven't personally run into that situation yet. I'm sure it's happened. But that's something that we probably need to talk to our legal counsel about. So if you want to, maybe table it because it's not a motion at this time, but I'd be more than happy to confer with Amber LePage to get her opinion on how that transaction would occur if the owner of that gravesite is already deceased and can't make any, can't authorize the sale of that purchase, how we proceed. Because I agree, it doesn't make sense to leave those empty gravesites there, but we need to come up with some system that is legal to transfer those unused plots to living family members. So.
It's real property since they own it, or the original purchaser owned it. It's difficult for someone who does not own it to purchase it. There's no one to transfer, and it's real property. It's not fictitious.
Well,
And that's a real estate deal. So
It's not considered property.
the ordinance would have to be, could the ordinance be changed?
I don't know if we actually have a specific ordinance that addresses that. I think it's just a matter of getting the attorney's legal opinion or her recommendation on how we can transfer these lots to the existing family members
It
without
probably
too
is
much hassle.
a state thing.
I believe it follows the Indiana state
Yeah.
inheritance laws. But then how many relatives are there that you have to get a hold of?
Right.
They would all have the same right.
Could I give that to you, Roxanne?
Oh, sure.
There must be other cemeteries who have this issue also.
I can tell you Amber's really thorough in her research, so I'm sure she'll come up with a definitive answer by the next meeting on this. So.
Okay.
Do we have to direct you to do that, or can you
No,
just?
I can do it.
I think the other question that Dennis had was, besides the family taking them over, about reselling, like why doesn't the cemetery buy it back? Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
I don't think that would work. I mean, I'll bet.
I mean, the only
legally.
time I've seen that happen is the cemetery pays what they paid for it. So if they bought it 30 years ago, they would get back whatever they paid for it, then it would be sold.
I don't think the city can actually purchase them back, but there might be some way that we can establish a list so that if somebody comes into the office and inquires about any lots that are available for sale.
They
To
on their own, yeah.
To put people in touch with one another.
right.
Yeah.
We don't want to set it up so it turns into a real estate deal. It's like,
Right.
I want to buy your land. And you don't want to sell it to me.
No, I
I'll buy it anyway.
It's not property, it's the interment right to be buried there.
It's the right to be buried,
Yes.
not owning
So
the
it's not real
land
estate.
itself.
Yeah, it's for burial. Yeah, correct.
She probably would be able to figure out if anything's possible.
But anyway, that's all I've got on that, but when I seen it, I thought, you know, for instance, Greenwood, yeah, everybody's saying it's packed, it's filled, but yet there's probably quite a few plots that are just there that cannot be used.
And I should point out that the cemetery software that we're looking at, that would help us out with this situation too, because there's some really nice reports that you can print off that. So like if we wanted to print off a report that shows all of the plots that have been sold but are not occupied yet, we could bring up that list and we would see exactly where every unoccupied plot is within the cemetery. So that'd be another benefit of this software system, because if we had to do that manually, Roxanne would be probably working for months on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add to new business?
If you want to go back to the old business, then
Yes.
That's what, okay.
Okay, we'll go back to old business about discontinuing the sale of bronze markers.
So obviously we had a committee that met to discuss and confer about the discontinuation of the sale of our grave markers. And so I guess we would just need a motion or maybe a report of what was discussed at that meeting, and then a motion is how we proceed. So.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I don't know that we came to a final decision on anything. Did you?
I thought we
Feel that?
decided that we shouldn't be in the business of selling markers, didn't we?
Did we? Well, it was you and I and Vera.
Oh, that's
That-
Shavira, no, I was thinking Renee, yeah. I don't know what
You know,
we need to do. It would be my recommendation that we not, but I'm just one of the three that
but I
met.
don't know if we found out if the other monument companies sell those. Did we?
Well, Jeff, you called Michigan City Monuments.
Yes, we've talked, the monument companies that we deal with, they do sell them already.
They do sell.
Also, a lot of the funeral homes have alternate sources for those too.
Right.
So that if we don't sell them, the funeral home can put them in touch with somebody who
I
does.
know you can buy them online too.
Oh, you're right, online, or we have 2 funeral homes that I deal with, and they buy them from them.
But again, we have existing rules on how those markers have to look as far as the size, placement, what can be put on them. So
And we have to install them.
yes, we will install them because we don't want any contractor coming out here and rutting up our lawns or destroying other grave markers when they bring their trucks in here. So we would still mount them, we would still sell the foundations for them.
No,
The-
not
the
the
granite.
No, not the granite, but we still sell foundations for our upright headstones. So we still have some sales, we'll still do the niche lettering.
Niche and crypt lettering.
Yes,
But we wouldn't be dealing with the granite on these.
right.
That would be the company,
Yes.
but you would need to approve them. Both of you would need to approve.
Not necessarily the company,
those.
we just need to approve the design.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right, they would have to email us what they're planning on or what they're buying.
Okay.
But we will have a setting charge, and there will have to be an increase in price on that.
Right.
So as far as committee members, does anyone know what that other person thinks or recommends?
I thought we were all in agreement.
Yeah, I don't remember that we did anything really
Maybe we probably
final.
should have
but-
taken notes or, something formal. So what would you need from the committee to be able to make a motion, I
Your
guess?
recommendation.
Oh,
Okay. Well, it's my recommendation that we discontinue selling the bronze markers.
and I will second that.
So we got a motion, we got a second. by
Yeah.
Bernadette.
Bernadette Dimke.
There you go.
I'm
Now,
quite sure that Vera
What we'll do,
is in agreement.
She probably.
Like we're 2 out of 3 anyway, so.
Right.
Yeah, you're out there.
still, whatever. We'll go ahead and vote on it then. All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? I guess the motion carries, and we'll go on and try to discontinue this sale of bronze markers at Swan Lake Memorial. Now, we have nothing here, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Pastor Carol?
And I can't help but second it.
Okay. We'll vote on that real quick, just for fun. All in favor?
Aye.
We're done.
For the, do we want to have it?
I went out.